Every great conversation begins between two thoughts.
Okay, I have to tell you something that I've never actually admitted to anyone. And I need you to not laugh.
I make no promises.
I talk to myself, like regularly, out loud, full conversations. When I'm cooking, when I'm working through a problem, when I'm walking somewhere and thinking about something difficult. I just talk to myself, out loud.
And you think this is something to be embarrassed about?
Well, yes, because it looks, a bit strange.
People see you talking to yourself and they give you a look, like, oh, she's one of those.
What if I told you that the research on self-talk, specifically on people who talk to themselves out loud, suggests something almost completely opposite to what that look implies?
What does it suggest?
That talking to yourself, far from being a sign of something wrong, is associated with higher cognitive function, better problem solving, stronger emotional regulation, more effective performance under pressure, and a significantly more developed capacity for self-awareness. The people giving you that look, statistically, might be the ones missing out.
Okay, now I need to hear everything.
Let's start with what self-talk actually is, because most people think of it as one thing. But researchers have identified several distinct forms. There's internal self-talk, the constant inner voice running in the background, the one narrating your experience, evaluating your decisions, planning your next move. And then there's external self-talk, the kind you do out loud, deliberately or not. Both are forms of inner speech, but they work slightly differently in the brain, and both matter enormously.
So the voice in my head and the voice I accidentally speak out loud. They're related but not the same thing.
Related but distinct. And research from Indiana University, published in Frontiers in Psychology, found that inner speech is present in the daily lives of people across almost all circumstances. It's not occasional, it's essentially continuous. The average person has somewhere between 6,000 and 80,000 thoughts per day, and the vast majority of those are mediated through some form of inner language. We are fundamentally linguistic beings. We think in words. We process in sentences. We make sense of our experience through internal narration.
So the inner voice isn't a quirk. It's the primary way the human mind organizes itself.
It's infrastructure. The internal language system is how the brain plans, evaluates, remembers, imagines, and regulates. Psychologist Alain Morin at Mount Royal University, who has spent decades specifically researching self-talk, identified 5 core functions it serves: regulating behavior, guiding decisions, taking other people's perspectives, driving self-improvement, and deepening social connection.
Wait, deepening social connection? Talking to yourself helps you connect with other people?
Because the inner voice is where we process other people, where we replay conversations, anticipate reactions, consider how someone else might feel, work out what we want to say before we say it. The inner dialogue is not just about you, it's the rehearsal space for every relationship you have.
So when I'm walking home from a difficult conversation, talking to myself about what happened and what I should have said, I'm actually processing the relationship, not just being self-absorbed.
Actively processing it in a way that has real neurological value. And this is where the out-loud version becomes fascinating. Because talking to yourself externally, actually vocalizing, engages different neural pathways than purely internal thought. Research published in Brain Sciences in 2024 found that listening to your own voice, specifically your own voice, has a unique neural basis that distinguishes it from hearing others speak. The brain processes the self-voice through overlapping auditory, motor, and sensory regions simultaneously, creating a richer, more integrated cognitive experience than silent thought alone.
So when I say something out loud to myself, my brain is processing it on more levels at once than when I just think it.
Significantly more. The act of vocalization adds motor planning, the physical act of forming words. It adds auditory feedback, hearing yourself. It adds a kind of externality. The thought leaves your internal world and enters the physical world. And that externality does something very specific. It creates distance between you and the thought, which makes it easier to evaluate, to question, to work with.
Thinking becomes more manageable when it's spoken, because you can hear it from the outside.
Exactly. And there's research specifically on this, on what happens to problem solving when people talk themselves through it out loud versus silently. Studies consistently show that verbalizing a problem, talking through it step by step, improves performance on complex tasks. Because the spoken word slows the thinking down, organizes it, forces a kind of linear structure that scattered internal thought doesn't always have.
So the person muttering to themselves while they work through something difficult is actually thinking better than the person doing it silently.
In many cases, yes. The verbalization is a cognitive tool, not a symptom of confusion, often a cause of clarity.
I want to send this to everyone who has ever given me that look.
There's more. Because the most extraordinary research on self-talk involves something called third-person self-talk, which is when instead of talking to yourself using I, you use your own name, or you. So instead of I can do this, you say Maya can do this, or you've got this, Maya.
Which sounds, honestly, a little strange. Referring to yourself in the third person.
It sounds strange. The research is remarkable. Studies by psychologist Ethan Kross at the University of Michigan, one of the leading researchers on self-talk globally, found that third-person self-talk creates what he calls psychological distancing, a measurable cognitive and emotional gap between the self and the stressful experience. And that gap, that tiny shift from I to your own name, produces significantly better emotional regulation, lower cortisol response to stress, and improved performance under pressure.
Just switching from I to my own name, and the stress response measurably reduces.
In controlled studies, and the reason is fascinating. When you use I, you are fully inside the experience, merged with it, emotionally flooded by it. When you use your name, you activate the same neural perspective-taking mechanisms you use when you think about other people. You see yourself, briefly, from a slight distance. And that distance is enough for the rational brain to regain some access, to think more clearly, to regulate more effectively.
You become your own wise friend for a moment, instead of just the person drowning in it.
That's precisely the mechanism. And Kross found this works particularly well under high-pressure situations, before public speaking, before difficult conversations, before high-stakes decisions. The shift to third-person self-talk in those moments is not vanity or strangeness. It's a neurologically sound regulation strategy.
So elite athletes who talk to themselves before big moments, coaches who give themselves pep talks, are using something real.
Research published in the American Journal of Education found that constructive self-talk, positive, instructional, forward-directed inner dialogue, is directly and significantly related to better performance outcomes, higher self-efficacy, and greater satisfaction across academic and professional domains. And that dysfunctional self-talk, critical, repetitive, shame-based, has the opposite effect on confidence and well-being, though interestingly, not always on performance itself.
Wait, negative self-talk doesn't always hurt performance?
This is one of the more surprising findings. Some research suggests that self-critical internal dialogue can, in certain short-term contexts, drive performance improvement. There's a study from 2021 published in Nature's Scientific Reports using fMRI brain scans, which found that after self-criticism, cognitive test scores actually improved in some participants. But, and this is the crucial part, the improvement came at a cost to the reward and motivation networks in the brain. Performance went up temporarily, but the internal experience became more aversive, more depleting.
So criticizing yourself might squeeze out better short-term performance, but it erodes the system that makes you want to perform at all.
Exactly. The inner critic can drive the car, but it runs on a fuel that runs out. And what's left when it runs out is not a better performer. It's a depleted, anxious, demotivated person who has been harsh to themselves for years and has nothing left to show for it except exhaustion.
Which is why the constructive self-talk, the kind that is warm, encouraging, instructional, produces better long-term outcomes. Because it runs on a fuel that doesn't deplete, it replenishes.
Self-compassionate self-talk, which connects directly to what we discussed about Dr. Kristen Neff's research, is not just kinder. It is more sustainable, more durable, and ultimately more effective as a performance and well-being strategy than the inner critic ever manages to be.
So the goal isn't to silence the inner voice. It isn't to stop talking to yourself. It's to change what you're saying.
And how you're saying it. Because the form matters too. Research shows that instructional self-talk, talking yourself through a task step by step, out loud or internally, is particularly effective for complex or novel tasks, where the brain needs guidance, where the steps aren't yet automatic. The inner voice becomes a patient teacher walking alongside you through something difficult.
And motivational self-talk, the "you've got this, keep going, almost there," is more effective for tasks that are already familiar, where the skill is there but the energy or the courage is what's needed.
The research distinguishes between those two types precisely because they work through different mechanisms. Instructional self-talk improves execution. Motivational self-talk improves effort and persistence. Knowing which one you need, in which moment, is itself a form of self-awareness that most people never consciously develop.
So talking to yourself well is actually a skill, not just something that happens accidentally.
One of the most important skills most people never intentionally develop, because they were taught, explicitly or implicitly, that talking to yourself is something to be hidden, something a little odd, something to do only when nobody is watching, when in reality it is one of the most sophisticated cognitive tools available to any human being. Used deliberately, used with awareness, used with the understanding that the voice you speak to yourself in most consistently is shaping your beliefs, your performance, your emotional life, and your relationship with everything else.
The voice you hear most in your life is your own, and most people have never stopped to ask whether it's actually on their side.
That question, is my inner voice on my side, might be one of the most important questions a person can ask. Because if the answer is no, if the voice that accompanies every moment of your life is critical, dismissive, harsh, relentless, then no external achievement, no external relationship, no external success is ever going to feel like enough. Because the most present relationship in your life, the one with yourself, is one of quiet hostility.
And if the answer is yes, if you can build an inner voice that is honest but kind, challenging but compassionate, instructive but patient, then you carry something with you into every room, every difficulty, every failure, and every success that nobody can take away. A reliable inner ally.
The most reliable one you will ever have, because it is always there. In every moment you have ever lived, your inner voice was present. The question is only, what was it saying? And what do you want it to say from now on?
If you talk to yourself out loud, under your breath, in the quiet of your own mind, you are not strange. You are not broken. You are doing something that research increasingly confirms is one of the most intelligent things a human brain can do. The question is not whether to do it. The question is whether you're doing it well. Whether the voice you carry with you is the voice you would choose if you knew how much it mattered.
Try something today. The next time you face something difficult, something uncertain, something that makes you nervous, speak to yourself by name, out loud if you can, or silently if you must, not with I, with your name. And notice what shifts, even slightly, even just the smallest amount of distance from the fear. That distance, that tiny step back from yourself, is the beginning of thinking more clearly, of choosing more wisely, of being, just slightly, your own best ally, instead of your own harshest critic.
The most important conversation you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. Make it a good one.
You've been listening long enough. Now, speak kindly.
Thank you for being here with us today. This one felt personal in the best way.
If this changed how you think about the voice in your head, share it with someone who talks to themselves and has always felt a little embarrassed about it. Tell them the research says hello.
And our question before you go:
What does your inner voice say to you most often? And is it the voice you would choose if you could choose?
tell us in the comments. We read every single one. Always.
Until next time.
Stay curious, stay kind, and speak to yourself like someone worth talking to.